And so I looked at him, and I could sort of see on his face, and he comes over to me and he says, "What did you do?" And I, you can look at your history quite quickly, and I still had quite a lot on screen. And I showed him, and he put his head in his hands, and I was like, "What, is it really bad?"
It was really bad. Shutting off the water to the whole city. Showers, faucets, sinks, even toilets were not functioning citywide. Our two other penetration testers immediately tried to figure out ways to fix the issue. One was looking at how the system operated and if it was possible to just turn it back on. But you don't want to just do that if it's going to cause a problem. The other pen tester immediately phones the point of contact, letting them know this is a major problem. Maxie was sort of in shock and incredibly embarrassed. She took her hands off the keyboard and just waited.
I was detained by security guards, and they were not very pleased.
This is a completely different situation from the last time she was detained by security. The last time she had a get-out-of-jail-free card. This time they knew that she was supposed to be there. In fact, it was a point of contact that called security on her. She was authorized to be there and do this, but this was not supposed to be disruptive to the organization. Not only was it disruptive to the organization, but it was disruptive to the whole town. So they wanted to at least get her recount of the matter recorded, so they had it for later.
I go down to a windowless room, and I'm questioned. And all of a sudden, one of the sort of accusations, if you want, was that I was a Russian spy. And I was thinking, how did we get there so quickly? Like, what happened?
Apparently, she spoofed her IP at one point to make herself look like she's coming from Russia, to try to test to see if they could detect that. But that was just very brief. And she was definitely not a Russian spy. But this was becoming scary now because it wasn't just a confession of a mistake she made. It was like they were treating this more like an investigation.
So I was held there for like a couple of hours, and of course the police were called. The police had to be called. I didn't have any ID on me. I had my work card, but that doesn't really matter because it's just a photo. I could have printed it myself. And I kept saying to them, if you let me go back to my apartment, I can get my passport for you. I'm British, and I'm not a spy, and you can contact my employer, and I'm actually here with two people. And I kept going, and they didn't want to hear it, and that's okay. That's kind of their job to do, to not believe me and to, look for the worst, because they've got to protect themselves against the worst. And eventually, at some point, I said to them, I need a glass of water. And the look would have been enough to, turn most people to stone. I was thinking, that was not an ideal question. And then eventually my employers at the time called in, and it did get sorted. And I narrowly escaped, essentially, I think you would call it prosecution. I escaped any legal action because of that. And I was on the graduation team, so that lent me some credibility in the fact that, okay, she doesn't know what she's doing, and it's okay. And my employer did fire me, and I will be eternally grateful for that.
She doesn't know how long the water was out that day. It could have been hours, minutes, seconds. It doesn't matter. The fact that it could be shut off, and it did get shut off, is why the police had to respond. But she narrowly got out of serious trouble from that one. But this sort of baptism by fire is how we learn the most important lessons in life. I mean, knowing firsthand what kind of true power a penetration tester has is profound. And this feeling sometimes flips back and forth too. Sometimes you feel completely blocked with no access to anything, and it makes you feel dumb. And other days you feel like with a single keystroke you can wreck this entire business. It almost reminds me of visiting a barber and getting an old-fashioned shave. The barber has his razor, and they're shaving your neck with it. You feel very vulnerable in that situation. And I think many companies do feel vulnerable when they allow a penetration tester to come in. Who knows what they saw or took? In my last job, we had a penetration tester come in and see what they could do, and they were able to crack 25% of all our passwords company-wide. That's like thousands of passwords. Of course, I read the report to see whose passwords got popped, but it only contained statistics, not passwords or usernames. And it made me think, this pen tester is walking out of our building with a bunch of our passwords. I've never felt more vulnerable at work before. We're going to take a quick ad break here, but stay with us because Maxie's going to tell us about a penetration test story that changed her life. sponsored by Rippling. HR teams were promised modern tools but ended up with a stack of disconnected apps. Onboarding, payroll, benefits, compliance, all in different places. That's not SaaS, that's SAD, software as a disservice. It's time to spend less time on checklists, more time on strategy. It's time to run on Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance.